Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Annie Dutcher and I'm the Programs Coordinator with Free to Breathe, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Life with Lung Cancer, How Nutrition and Exercise Affect Outcomes. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. If you do have a question throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the chat feature, which is located in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. And at the very end of the conference, we'll have Q&A and we'll address as many of those questions as we're able to. I do want to give a huge thank you to our supporters, Genentech and Boehringer Ingelheim, who made today's webinar possible. And it's an honor to be joined today by our expert presenters, Jennifer Wolfschull of Meals to Heal and Dr. Anna Schwartz of Northern Arizona University and the University of Washington. Today we'll be going over a number of aspects of nutrition and exercise, including the goals of nutrition during and after treatment, sources of nutrition for healing and maintenance, the goals of exercise during and after treatment, exercise options for different levels of mobility, Free to Breathe resources, which we'll be excited to share with you, and then we'll end with a Q&A with Dr. Schwartz and Jennifer Wolfschull. And now I'm excited to hand over the presentation to Jennifer Wolfschull. Jennifer?
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Annie, for that introduction. It's a pleasure to join you guys this afternoon. Please feel free to jot down your questions so you don't forget them, and so we can, in the chat box, so hopefully we can get to as many as possible at the end of the call. That would be great. Today, our main objectives are going to be, we're going to discuss the goals of nutrition before, during, and after treatment. We're also going to discuss sources of nutrition for healing and maintenance, what foods to include and foods to avoid. Fortunately, the American Institute for Cancer Research has put together a list of guidelines to really help us know what we should and what we shouldn't eat. And not only is this very helpful in regards to cancer prevention, treatment, and survivorship, but it's also important to prevent any other kind of chronic disease such as diabetes, heart disease, chronic kidney disease, and obesity. So let's get started. The first and most important guideline, which we're going to discuss in detail, is to be as lean as possible without being underweight. We encourage everyone to be physically active for at least 30 minutes every day, to avoid sugary drinks, and limit the consumption of energy-dense foods. Now, we're going to also discuss this in more detail in just a moment, but we're going to contrast energy-dense foods with nutrient-dense foods. And energy-dense foods are things that have a lot of calories and very little nutritional value, and nutrient-dense foods are the opposite of that. They have tons of nutrient value, tons of vitamins and minerals with very little calories. And those foods that are nutrient-dense foods are the following: the variety of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes such as beans. These are all foods that we want to incorporate into our diet. I'm in the school of thought that believes that as long as we're focused on trying to add foods into the diet, it's naturally going to displace some of the other energy-dense foods that we're trying to avoid. Limiting the consumption of red meat, beef, pork, and lamb. Now, the American Institute for Cancer Research actually says that we want to limit the consumption of red meat to less than 18 ounces in the course of a week. So you can still eat red meat a few times a week, but keep in mind portion size is everything. And try to be less than 18 ounces in a week. And really trying to avoid those processed meats. Really baked, broiled, and grilled fresh meats are always best. If consumed at all, limit alcoholic drinks to 2 a day for men and 1 a day for women. And the next one goes hand in hand with the processed meats, but also limiting the consumption of salty foods and foods processed with salt or sodium. And do not use supplements to protect against cancer. So how do we maintain a healthy weight? Now, and what is a healthy weight? Well, for men, the guideline is to be less than 40 inches around the waist, and for women, less than 35 inches. One of the best things I always tell my patients is to focus on smaller, more frequent meals and snacks. And the smaller is key here. We don't want you eating several large meals and snacks. But if you think about dividing your meals up to kind of graze through the day instead of avoiding very large meals, you're going to stay full longer, and you're going to avoid feelings of starvation and feelings of hunger. I always tell people that extreme hunger equals extreme eating. So if you eat mindfully, you're going to be focusing on fiber and protein in each and every meal and snack. Now, a good source of fiber is something that has at least 5 grams of fiber, and you can find that information by looking on the nutrition label. And protein. So again, this is going to make you feel full longer. It's going to make you more mindful of what you are putting in your body, and it's going to help stabilize blood sugar. So the importance of this is that, again, you're going to avoid spiking your blood sugar and having that crash immediately after. So you're going to have more level blood sugar. You're going to feel full longer. You should shoot for a goal of 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. And I would encourage you to gradually add the fiber into the diet so you avoid any kind of abdominal cramping or bloating. Now, we're going to talk about these nutrient-dense foods. So these are the most important to try and add into the diet. And when I'm saying add into the diet, our goal is to have 8 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. This is more than the previously thought 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. But again, if we focus on adding the minimally processed plant-based foods and adding 8 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables, you're going to fill up on these foods, and it's naturally going to displace some of the processed foods or the energy-dense foods in the diet. Focusing on the green leafy vegetables are very important. They have the most nutritional value in them. And this is called the cruciferous vegetables, the kale, the chard, mustard greens, collard greens, the broccoli, cauliflower, the stinkier vegetables, but they're really good for you. They're just packed with nutrition. Blackberries, blueberries, any kind of berries are all great. Making your grains whole. Look for on the label to say 100% whole wheat or whole grain. Also, other grains are very important too. You can start looking for things like barley, rye, quinoa. These are going to be non-processed, so that means they still have the fiber intact. So not only are you getting a great source of protein, of fiber, because they are not processed, you're also getting a great source of protein as well in these grains. That's why it's important to have whole grains. Beans and legumes, again, great source of iron, protein, fiber, and folate. Hummus is a great one. Hummus, you can try adding it to avocado, lima beans, or edamame to just really ramp up the nutritional value. It makes for a great snack. Again, you're going to get the protein and the fiber in that food. Healthy fats, these are also going to make you feel full longer, and it's also they're wonderful. Nuts, seeds, avocado, olives, olive oil, canola oil, flaxseed, fish. These are all have so many benefits to eating these foods. Calcium-rich foods, and then lean proteins also. So specifically, nutrition needs change through treatment. I always tell people that this is a window in time where good nutrition, although it is our focus, we need to be flexible, and we really need to focus on our nutrition and how we can support our medical treatment with our nutrition treatment. So it's really important to tailor your nutrition plan to your medical plan. If you're having tons of side effects to your treatment, we're going to have to, bend the rules a little bit with our nutrition to try and focus on what's really important. So things that are really important through treatment are protein. Focusing on protein, these are the building blocks of red and white blood cells. This is going to help you maintain strength, rebuild tissue. It's a key nutrient for maintaining immune function. And also, when you're building red and white blood cells, you are increasing. Red blood cells carry oxygen to the tissues in the body. So you're also going to maximize your energy level if you focus on eating protein. Vitamins and minerals, iron, vitamin C and B for making blood cells, antioxidants help maintain the integrity of cells, so that's going to be all your fruits and your vegetables again. Calcium and vitamin D for bone health. You want to make sure you're getting enough calories, and calories are important to provide energy for all bodily functions, and it's very important because it helps preserve your own protein stores. It keeps the body from breaking down muscle. So if you are not eating enough calories, your body's going to start metabolizing, start breaking down your own muscle stores, your own protein stores for energy. And we really want to avoid that, especially through treatment. So And keep in mind that you have increased need for calories when the body is stressed, when you are going through treatment. Fluids are required for blood volume, for adequate blood volume, also for electrolyte balance, and also fluids are very also important for energy level to fight fatigue. So what can and can't nutrition do? Proper nutrition, again, it can help the body to maintain healthy cells, repair itself, maintain a sense of well-being, reduce the risk of illness, help to maximize the impact of treatment. It also gives you a sense of something you can control. Poor nutrition, it can't reduce the quality of life and functional status. It can reduce the quality of life and functional status. It can increase the risk for other illness, reduce your body's overall natural defenses, and limit the body's ability to repair itself. So again, this weight maintenance is very important. During treatment specifically, we want to keep the weight on. Weight loss can increase fatigue. Again, adequate nutrition are essential for, again, this is kind of repetitive, but maintaining those blood cells, immune function, lean muscle mass, optimizing energy, and hydration. These are just key things that we really want to focus on through treatment. We also want to really use caution when using supplements. One reason being is that they're not FDA regulated, so what's on the label may or may not be what's in the actual supplement. A lot of supplements have blood thinning or thickening properties. A lot of times when you're going through treatment, you have a whole list of medications that you're taking, and a lot of them already thin or thicken your blood, and you don't want to get in the way of that by taking a supplement that can either do the opposite or do the same thing too much. So that's something to really be mindful of. Again, supplements can also alter metabolism. I like to use the example of grapefruit because a lot of people are familiar with that. They need to avoid grapefruit when they're taking a cholesterol medication called a statin. So the reason is that the grapefruit, it uses the same metabolic pathway that the statin uses, and so it can alter the amount of the statin in your blood. So we really, similarly, a lot of supplements do that very same thing. If you're on get an injection called Velcade, green tea interferes with that, and so it's very important to just use caution with these. Antioxidants and chemoradiation, there's some research that says that high doses of antioxidant in pill form, not in the diet, things that we eat, the fruits and the vegetables, are metabolized differently than pills for several different reasons, but it's always natural. Natural is always best. The actual foods and fruits are the best. They don't seem to get in the way of chemo and radiation, but there's some schools of thought and some research that supports that high doses of antioxidants in pill form can interfere with chemo and radiation. Hormone properties, a lot of supplements have things that act like estrogen or act like other hormones in the body, so we really want to avoid that. And again, high doses of herbs and vitamins can lead to toxicity. One great thing is to always check your facts. The Memorial Sloan Kettering has a great herbal database that you can plug in any herb, any vitamin, any supplement that you're thinking of taking, and it can tell you all of the possible drug-nutrient interactions that go along with that and what to be mindful of. QuackWatch is also a great website that you can really go through, and it helps you to find things that are going to be safe. Again, you can also contact your dietitian if you have one in the facility. I go through patients' supplement lists and compare it to their medication list all the time to make sure that nothing they're taking is going to interfere with their treatment. So that's something. Also, the pharmacist can assist you with that. Now, again, food is always best, so in trying to eat from a variety of the colors of the rainbow, it's going to be the best medicine when it comes to supplements. The best supplements to take are in the foods that we're eating. So this is a great chart. It just tells you by color what phytochemicals are in that color and where you can find those fruits and vegetables in the diet. And try, again, if you're shooting to get 8 to 10 of these into the diet a day, you're really going to be doing yourself a favor, and you're naturally going to be displacing a lot of those other foods that we're trying to avoid. And again, here are some resources for you: the American Institute for Cancer Research, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and then the Memorial Sloan Kettering Herbal Database and QuackWatch. And that concludes my portion of this webinar. And please continue to enter your questions into the chat box, and I hope to get to as many as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer, so much. We really appreciate your presentation. I want to just remind you, just as Jennifer did, that to please continue to ask questions, and we'll address as many as possible at the end. And at this point in time, I would like to hand over the presentation to Dr. Schwartz.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So I want to talk to you today about physical activity and lung cancer. And I want to start off kind of initially talking about how I got interested in this area, and then talk about the science behind it, and then the specifics related to lung cancer. X marked the spot. I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was a college student, a free and happy-go-lucky college student not worrying about anything, when suddenly the storm clouds gathered over my head and my life changed in an instant. And what became really important in my mind was doing things that I had always wanted to do, following that dream that I'd been putting aside while I was going to school. And one of my dreams was to ride my bike across the country, which I did later that year in a 15-day ride across the country. And then I was later picked up by a cycling team and started doing a lot of bike racing, and I set several 24-hour distance records. One of them was a 24-hour tandem record, a bicycle for two. I went on and won some national championships at time trialing, and later had to go back and ride another 24-hour solo record to set the record straight after one of my people that I'd been coaching broke my record. All of this I did while I was on and off treatment for cancer. And a lot of this I also did, we started doing bicycle coaching camps and teaching people how to live a healthy life, how to exercise. And the last big thing I really wanted to accomplish was to set a 24-hour track world record. And at this point I'd set enough world records that I was getting fairly well known for my crazy behaviors, and had gotten an article in USA Today and several other big papers and sports magazines. But I knew in my heart that I didn't feel right, and I had another recurrence, which then really pushed me to think I have to do something that's meaningful for other people, not just fulfill my own personal goals. And that's basically how I got into this cancer and exercise research, because I saw that it helped me as a cancer survivor, and I was also a nurse at that point and saw that it really made a difference. Physical activity made a difference for my bone marrow transplant patients. So if we jump forward to where we are today, there are a lot of cancer survivors. Today in the United States, there's 14 million cancer survivors, and over 3% of that represent lung cancer survivors. As our treatments have improved, the lung cancer survival rates have improved. But we haven't done as much to look at really what is the cost to the health and well-being of cancer survivors. How can we improve their quality of life? We know that cancer survivors, and specifically lung cancer survivors, have unique health care needs. They have unique preventative care needs in the long term. They have long-lasting effects from cancer treatment, and they have comorbid conditions that affect the lingering side effects from treatment and often compound the effects of treatment. And we know that 1 in 5 lung cancer survivors will have a cancer-related work limitation. So they're not able to work, or they're not able to work full-time. They're maybe not able to pursue the job they were in prior to their diagnosis. And we know that the majority of all cancer survivors would benefit from cancer rehabilitation. But sadly, we know that fewer than 5% ever receive a referral for this. So rehabilitative care for cancer survivors falls woefully short, and is really the reason we're here talking about it today. So I want to skip back in time almost 20 years ago when we very first started doing this, and this is results from the very first study of cancer and exercise, where they were looking at, can cancer survivors exercise during treatment, and what will be the effects? And the effects are profound. People who exercise get their pulmonary function improves, their heart function improves, they get stronger, they get fitter, they get faster, they have an improved quality of life. So we've now seen this over and over in studies across different types of diagnoses for nearly 20 years. But we also know that when patients first get diagnosed, they go straight to Judy's Curl Up and Die beauty shop, where because the treatments that we give, starting with the overwhelm of the diagnosis, the surgery, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, whatever someone's regimen is, causes profound effects on profound fatigue. And we know that fatigue is the number one side effect of cancer treatment. And so what is very counterintuitive to many people is that exercise is the most powerful intervention, better than any drug that we have, to reduce fatigue. And in this slide, the red line shows the people who did not exercise, and the blue line shows the exercisers. And you can see that the blue line goes down. That means that their fatigue level went down. And so when I talk to patients about this, they always say, okay, if I have to do this, how much exercise do I have to do? Is there no way to just get this in a pill? And so after looking at hundreds of people in exercise studies and looking at them over time, when they've kept logs every single day, what we found is that patients need to exercise 10 to 30 minutes a day. More is okay if you're fit to begin with, but you need to progress very slowly. And optimally, you would exercise every day. But reasonably, probably every other day will work. Well, we know that every other day will work for you. It's a statistically significant difference and a clinically significant difference in reducing your fatigue when you exercise at least every other day. So what kind of exercise do you need to do? Well, we know that strength is really important. It helps us to continue activities that we find meaningful and valuable in our day, like going to work, being able to walk, caring for our family, being active with our family. Having good muscle strength keeps us from getting hurt. It keeps our bones strong. And you may say, well, why do I care about my bones? I have lung cancer. But you care about your bones staying strong because many of our lung cancer treatments can actually waste our bones. So we need to stay strong. And a big piece of what we've been talking about today and what you need to think about in your everyday life is maintaining really good nutrition. And a key to maintaining your muscle strength is by eating well. Particularly eating proteins are important to your muscle health and being able to build your muscle. Eating a balanced diet, small frequent meals, and realizing that there are no magic foods. As an elite athlete, when I used to coach people, I always had people saying, what do you eat? What's the magic food you eat? And there isn't a magic food. It's just a matter of eating a well-balanced, good diet. When we look at studies that have looked at aerobic exercisers, so people who walked and did aerobic exercise, or people who lifted weights or resistance exercise, we see that the biggest benefit is in patients who do aerobic exercise, walking particularly. While resistance exercisers get stronger on the average about 16% in their muscle strength, aerobic exercisers gain about 23%. And I think they gain more muscle strength because as they get fitter, as their heart and lungs get stronger, they're able to do more. So perhaps they're carrying in more grocery bags. They're also more likely to continue with this exercise because it's more enjoyable. They can go for a walk with their dogs or their grandkids or their family. We know that the usual care patients, the patients who go home and rest and quote-unquote take care of themselves, they lose on the average about 25% of their strength, which is a huge reason why fatigue is such a big problem in this group. Because as you get weaker, as your strength declines, everything's more of an effort, so you become much more fatigued. So when we talk about rehabilitation, or in this slide we're talking about prehabilitation, we're talking about doing physical activity before you start any kind of treatment. So say you're just diagnosed and you want to be in your best shape possible. That's prehabilitation. And we know that when people start to exercise before they start to get any kind of treatment, they have an improved exercise tolerance, they have improved exercise capacity, their endurance improves, their lung function improves, their muscles get stronger, and they have an improved quality of life. We also know that there's another benefit, that if patients have had any kind of surgery, they have decreased post-operative complications, they have less dyspnea and less fatigue. All very positive outcomes from simply walking. When patients are in active treatment, or if they've completed treatment, or they're in between phases of treatment, we see the same benefits. And actually sometimes we see more exaggerated benefits. We see that patients have an improved exercise tolerance and exercise capacity. Their pulmonary function improves. They have improved muscle strength and endurance. Their body composition improves, or their body mass index. Their physical well-being improves, and as does their quality of life. And again, we see fewer complications. We see less dyspnea, fatigue, and shorter recovery times. Again, all very positive benefits from exercise. So you may say, well, who benefits the most from exercise? And I'll say that all patients at any time of diagnosis. I really encourage patients when they're first diagnosed to begin to exercise, but all patients with any stage of disease receiving any kind of treatment can exercise, and you need to learn how to exercise within your ability and within your disease. Long-term survivors benefit, and caregivers benefit. And so if everybody can exercise together, I think it's a really good way to keep people motivated to keep going. The goals of cancer rehabilitation really focus on improving your functional ability, helping you to do what you want to do and what's meaningful to you, improving muscle strength, quality of life, and functional independence. This slide just sort of shows you in a different way, more of a graphical way. Rehab goals are to improve strength, endurance, flexibility, improve function, side effects, and reduce suffering to overall have an improved quality of life. So the physical activity recommendations for lung cancer survivors are basically the same as for healthy adults. We want people to aerobic exercise 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week at a moderate intensity, trying to reach a total of 150 minutes of aerobic exercise per week. Now, many of you may say, I'm not healthy enough to do that much. I haven't been exercising that much. So what's encouraging is that the research very strongly supports exercising in shorter bouts. I have 10 minutes per session spread out throughout the week, but you know what? You can even do that in 2-minute sessions. If you can get up and walk around your dining room table, pull the chairs away, and then if you get really tired, sit down in the chair and rest. And if you continue to do this over the next several weeks, you'll find that your walking and your strength and your aerobic capacity will improve markedly. It's also important to do muscle strengthening activities and keep yourself flexible by doing stretching exercises that involve all the major muscle groups at least twice a day. 2 days per week. There's no magic way to exercise. You don't have to be a competitive cyclist. What's important is that you do something that you like. I've had people who enjoy dancing go out dancing a couple days a week. Walking on a treadmill. This is one of my patients who used to like to skydive. I don't actually usually recommend that as a great activity. So what should you do? Exercise within your ability. Try to exercise every other day or every day. Exercise 10 to 30 minutes a day, and break the exercise into shorter sessions if you need to. And most importantly, go slowly. We all think back to what we used to do when we were 20 or 30 years younger and we were bionic. But we're not bionic anymore, and we have to really think about how far can I really walk? How much can I really do? Am I able to walk up a flight of stairs? Set reasonable and attainable goals, and you'll be successful. If you set goals that are too lofty, you'll get defeated. So be very reasonable and honest with yourself. And be an advocate for yourself. Ask for a referral to rehabilitation or an outpatient physical therapy program so that you can get guidance in the type of exercise that you're doing. There are some excellent community programs out there. The Live Strong at the YMCA program is a cancer survivor program that is throughout the United States. We've had thousands of people go through the program. And it's a very well-established program. Another program is Exercise and Thrive up in the Northwest. And there are physical therapists throughout the country who are able to guide people in a cancer rehabilitation and strengthening program. I've used this slide, Another Lovely Day at the Club, for many years because I had always hoped that things would progress more rapidly than they are. But today I think we really are approaching another lovely day at the club where cancer rehabilitative services are available. You do need to often ask for them, but there is a growing group of cancer survivorship rehab programs. And if you're interested more in learning about how to develop your own program, my book, Cancer Fitness, talks about how to manage your symptoms so that you are able to exercise successfully. And it has several different exercise programs that have been well studied in research studies. And today, cancer is about living, and I hope that our talk today has helped you to feel more confident and inspired to live the fullest life that you're able to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schwartz. And I just wanted to go into information about some of the resources that Free to Breathe has to offer as well, and then after that we'll take some time for Q&A. So feel free to continue to place your questions into the chat feature. I wanted to share, first of all, that Free to Breathe has some excellent print patient resources that are actually also available on our website. We do have an information kit for someone who's just been diagnosed with lung cancer, and that includes a booklet discussing what it means to have a lung cancer diagnosis and possible treatment and care options, as well as a personalized care plan that you can use when visiting your physician throughout your treatment. And like I said before, all of these resources, they're free of charge and may be ordered or viewed on our website at freetobreathe.org/resources. Speaking of exercise, I wanted to encourage those of you who are not familiar with our event series to visit our website and find out if we're holding a run, walk, bike ride, or yoga event near you. Many run-walk events have a 1 mile or less walk option, and to ensure your comfort, a special survivor and VIP area. You can register for an event, fundraise, or donate at freetobreathe.org/events, and I hope you'll take the time to check that out because they're really a lot of fun. There's also some great community resources out there, and I know that Dr. Schwartz and Jennifer already shared some of those, but I wanted to add a few additional ones. Meals to Heal, which is the group that Jennifer is with, in partnership with Livestrong and the American Institute for Cancer Research, developed a wonderful nutrition guide, which you can download from Meals to Heal's website. And if you'd like to dig a little deeper into that content, Meals to Heal compiles other useful information about cancer and nutrition on their website as well. For a fee, they also offer nutritional counseling with a certified oncology dietitian, as well as a nutritious home delivery meal program. Team Survivor is a nonprofit that works in communities across the USA to provide free or low-cost group exercise options for cancer survivors. And finally, the Livestrong Foundation provides general information for cancer survivors who have completed treatment, including exercise and wellness. Wanted to again thank our sponsors of today's event, Genentech and Boehringer Ingelheim. We appreciate their support in making this webinar possible. Wanted to also note here that before we go into question time, we will be sending out a recording, as Alice noted in the chat feature, so you can expect to hear from us a little bit later this week. Please feel free to share that recording or to view it on your own time. Now I'd like to take time for questions, and first of all, I have a question for Jennifer. Jennifer, some fruits are high in sugar content, so do you recommend eating these fruits? And what fruits are best?
That's a great question, and eating fruit is better than not eating fruit. And if you compare different fruits, you can also compare it to juices as well. I do always recommend eating the actual fruit instead of eating a juice that you might buy at the grocery store. The reason for that is because fruit has the fiber component that slows down how quickly the body absorbs that sugar and how quickly your blood sugar will spike in response to that. With that being said, fruits that have the skin on them are going to be lower in sugar, and again, it's going to slow the release of the sugar into the blood. So anything with the skin on it, the apples or pears, these are all going to have higher fiber, lower sugar options. Berries are also very low in sugar, actually, and so I would focus on that, and then just also focus the fruits that do have more sugar in them. Things like, bananas are always get a bad rap because they have so many carbohydrates in them. But as long as you're keeping it in a normal portion size, a serving of banana is actually one very small banana, which is 6 inches. Just use your eye and don't overdo it on any one fruit or vegetable, but make sure that you're really focusing on those, trying to get those 8 to 10 servings of both of fruits and vegetables, but just don't leave out the vegetable component. Everybody can eat, tons and tons of servings of fruit, but if you focus on trying to get those dark green, those cruciferous vegetables we talked about, the kale, the Swiss chard, turnip greens, the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts, those foods, if we try to, work with it, just adding those foods in, and then also trying to add some of the dark color fruits into, like the berries, I think you're gonna do yourself a favor. Just trying, and always trying to get fruits with the skin intact, with the fiber.
Thank you. A question for Dr. Schwartz. Is there any information to show if people who exercise prior to a diagnosis do better? And if so, what benefits were seen?
That's a great question. And I don't believe that there have been any studies to date comparing physically active people at diagnosis to those who were unfit at diagnosis. But what we do know is that when people are fitter, they start out with a higher aerobic capacity, stronger muscles, and so they tend to lose. They have a higher base. So when they start to get fatigued, they still have more. They have more just inherent muscle strength and cardiac reserve. So that actually does help them. Not to say that they don't feel fatigue, because if they continue to try and exercise at that same intensity, they still experience the fatigue. They have to exercise more carefully. And there's a product on the web called RestWise that we've been studying with cancer survivors as a way to help them modulate their exercise. It's really intended for athletes to prevent overtraining. And we've taken that and we're using it with cancer survivors now to help them recover more quickly. And we're seeing really remarkable, I was rather skeptical, but we're seeing remarkable benefits by helping people to basically interpret their symptoms at an earlier stage so they don't get so fatigued. So if you're an athletic cancer survivor, you can use this to prevent, to earlier tap into when you're getting overtrained or not recovering well when you're exercising. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Another question for Jennifer. Are one-a-day vitamins safe to take? And what is a website that you can check to see if a supplement interferes with medicines?
So typically, just a regular old one-a-day is fine. I would definitely check the nutrition label, and as long as any vitamin or mineral does not greatly exceed at 100% of the daily value, then it's typically okay. Also make sure that it doesn't have any kind of, I wouldn't take a women's one. There might be some other herbs in there that could act like hormones, act like estrogen in the body, but if you take just a regular old one-a-day, that's typically just fine. Again, the website to check for possible drug-nutrient interactions is that Memorial Sloan Kettering Herbal Database, and you will have access to the slides, and their website is on my reference slide. So that's a great resource.
Great. A question for Dr. Schwartz again. We've gotten a response from somebody. They said since their chemo, they developed neuropathy in their feet. Their feet are very sensitive and develop corns easily. They've tried new shoes and diabetic socks with no success. What would you suggest?
There's some research to suggest that niacin actually reduces some of the peripheral neuropathy. And we used to tell patients that this would go away in time. And what we find is it does improve with time. It probably will not completely resolve. There are some medications such as gabapentin that can reduce some of the peripheral neuropathy. But if it's primarily not so much the neuropathy but the corns that are bothering you, then I would suggest using something like A&D so that you're reducing the friction, a heavy ointment. Like A&D or Bag Balm, so that you're reducing the friction of your feet in your shoes.
Great, thank you. Another question for Jennifer. A couple questions about green tea. Somebody says they drink a lot of green tea. Should green tea only be avoided during treatment? Is it safe to drink after treatment? And on a related note, is green tea okay to drink if you haven't taken Velcade?
So those questions, they're kind of one and the same in that each person is very different, and each person has a different medical plan, and you are all taking very different medications. Green tea does tend to interfere with several different medications. So if you are concerned, I would definitely ask your pharmacist that question specifically if you tend to enjoy green tea daily. Otherwise, if you're not taking medication, it's great. It's a great antioxidant. I recommend it. But, it is one of those that if you are taking several different medications, run it by your pharmacist. Find out if you have a dietitian close by that you can ask just to glance over and make sure that you're not interfering. But Velcade is just one example. It can interact with other medications as well.
And Jennifer, we have someone asking about superfood powder supplements, especially if they can't eat enough to get the nutrients that they need.
So the thing about superfood powder supplements is that vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. So if you exceed the amount that you need for the day, you're going to lose it. It's going to be excreted through your urine. And so a lot of those powdered supplements are a waste of money in that you're literally sending it down the drain. So I typically don't recommend them. I just recommend trying to, start small. Just these changes can be made over time. Start small. If you find a couple vegetables that you like, just incorporating them into trying to have them with lunch and with dinner, and then slowly try and increase them into the diet. You're going to get more nutritional value from eating the actual vegetable than you are in a powdered supplement, and you won't lose it. You won't take an amount that's going to be excreted through the urine and lose it down the drain. A lot of them tend to be just a waste of money.
And Jennifer, can you please clarify the recommendations for protein and fiber intake?
Sure. So with fiber, the recommendation is 25 to 30 grams a day, and a high fiber food is something that contains greater than 5 grams of fiber per serving. So you can look on your nutrition label and check it out. Also, the recommendations for protein are different for each individual. So again, this depends on your kidney function. If you have healthy kidneys, typically it's 0.8 grams per kilogram. So take your body weight in pounds, divide by 2.2, that gives you kilograms, and then multiply that by 0.8. If you're going through treatment, you need a little bit more, so you multiply by 1.2 to find out how many grams of protein you need a day. But really, if you don't want to crunch the numbers, you really don't need to. Just focus on trying to eat lean meats or nuts or eggs or something, a good source of protein with each meal and with each snack throughout the day, and you should be right on track. Really, the point is to be eating mindfully, trying to incorporate a good source of protein and a good source of fiber with each meal and snack, and that'll help you reach your goals.
Jennifer, speaking of protein, someone was interested in hearing what your take was on poultry, fish, and Greek yogurt.
Okay. Greek yogurt is excellent. I did see that question. I think it was referencing Greek yogurts that have a lot of added sugar in them with fruit. Greek yogurt is great because typically it is a lower sugar food and has double the amount of protein in it. So I would just glance at the nutrition label. Really, if you're just having one serving a day, I wouldn't get too bent out of shape about it. If you're just having a little bit, if it's fruit that's in there, I wouldn't go crazy and add a ton of fruit and honey and granola and all things that really ramp up the sugar value. But if you're just having, plain Greek yogurt, and if you're adding fruit in it as a natural sweetener, because plain Greek yogurt is pretty stout, then you should be fine. That's not something I would be concerned about. And regarding fish is an excellent source of protein. Really, the fish that has going to be the highest in those omega-3s are the fish that are in the very cold water. So so any kind of fish that lives in very cold waters, those are going to be the ones with maximum omega-3 content. But all fish is a good source of lean protein. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry about that, Jennifer. One more question around specific foods. Someone was wondering about organic fruits and vegetables. Are they better? And what about genetically modified foods? Do you have any recommendations when chemo causes you to lose your taste?
Really, oh gosh, so that's a hard question, especially when you complicate it with chemo also. So in a typical healthy diet, there is a great list put forth by the Environmental Working Group, and you can Google that. It's the EWG, environmentalworkinggroup.org, and they put forth a list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And the Dirty Dozen are the foods that are most likely to be contaminated with pesticides. And that is a list of foods that I would consider buying organic if you're wanting to avoid the pesticides. Similarly, it has the list of the Clean 15, and those are the foods that really are not likely to be contaminated with pesticides. So those are foods that you could focus on buying organic or not buying organic if you wanted to save money, and it's really just not necessary because they're probably they're the least likely to be contaminated with pesticides. Regarding treatment, that is just a special window in time where our number one focus is sparing your muscle mass, sparing your protein stores. And so I want you to eat whatever is going to give you enough calories to spare that. And at that time, really other things like organic, that kind of goes to the periphery, and our main focus is weight maintenance, muscle maintenance. So things shift in that regard. Same with genetically modified foods. I always encourage people to look for things that are least processed, that are non-GMO. It's just a healthier way to eat. Just trying to find fresh foods that are from the earth, that were put here for us to eat, instead of things that man has processed and added fat, added sugar, added salt to it. It's always, if you have the ability to buy foods that have not been genetically modified, that's always best.
Thank you. And a question for Dr. Schwartz. Do you recommend swimming?
I recommend any kind of activity that people enjoy. So if you enjoy swimming, I say go for it. I say that with the reservation, though, that I really encourage people to walk as much as they can, because walking is what keeps us independent. But swimming also keeps us strong and healthy, and it gives you good flexibility. So if you're able to swim during your treatments or whenever you want, it's an excellent thing to do.
Great. Thank you. Another question for Dr. Schwartz. Someone says that they are a registered dietitian and personal trainer. How can the clubs that they work for get involved in a program to assist cancer survivors and others with medical needs?
That's a really good question, and I think it's a really burgeoning area of need. I would encourage trainers to look at the American College of Sports Medicine. We have books to help. There's actually an exercise training, a cancer exercise specialist certification they can get. And the American College of Sports Medicine publishes a kind of a guideline to help you get yourself ready for that, to sit for that exam. And when you take that exam, it really helps you. It gives you the background to work with cancer survivors and understanding of the physiology and the pathophysiology and the treatments. It also provides a lot of information on the logistics of how to run a program. And I think if you look at the Live Strong at the YMCA, it's a really excellent model for other cancer survivor exercise programs.
Thank you. A question for Jennifer. Do you recommend eating corn?
Yeah, I think that everything in moderation. I think that corn is, it's a starch. We do need carbohydrates to make up the largest. First of all, it's the number one source of energy that our brain uses, and starch. It does make up carbohydrates make up the largest food group. So I think that one thing to keep in mind with corn is a portion size. I would try not to exceed a half a cup of corn at this time. A serving of corn is actually a third of a cup. So keep in mind that some foods like corn have more calories in them per serving, and so just try and keep in mind that in mind. And but I think that it can fit into any diet.
Okay. And a question for Jennifer again. Has there been any research on how an alkaline diet affects someone diagnosed with cancer?
Yes, there has. And, there is another website I want to throw out there. It's called caringforcancer.com, and it has a wonderful answer to that question. It really talks about how the job of the digestive tract is to maintain a very tight control of the pH of the body, and you are not going to change the pH of your body by eating a non-alkaline or by avoiding acidic foods in the diet. So with that being said, I think that it's important. The only way that you could do that effectively would be to eat baking soda, and that would send you to the hospital. And so that is something that you would definitely want to avoid, and we do not recommend. However, there has been some studies to show that foods that are more alkaline can be helpful, and those foods are the fruits and the vegetables that we've already been talking about and already been encouraging. So I think if you just focus on having a well-balanced diet, eating the 8 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables, focusing on those cruciferous vegetables, that's going to do yourself the most good. So, and again, if you want to check out the Caring for Cancer, they have a wonderful, very cohesive explanation of that. It's a very hot topic right now, and they do a good job answering it.
Jennifer, for some cancer survivors, side effects from therapy or even the cancer itself can cause issues eating, like nausea or a loss of appetite. How might folks dealing with this address their nutrition needs?
So that is something that I work with each patient on. I tailor my nutrition plan to support their medical plan. I've said that a couple of times. With nausea, so we could really talk about this all day. With nausea, typically the carbohydrates are the foods that are going to be the easiest on the stomach, and they're going to, that is because we start breaking them down right when you put them into your mouth. We start to digest them, and so they're very easy to absorb. With nausea, it's very important to stay ahead of the nausea curve, so instead of not eating, that can actually make it worse. It's important to have smaller, more frequent meals and snacks, and trying, to have small amounts of carbohydrate that are easy to digest. Another thing that you can try is ginger. Anything with 1 gram of ginger in it is a natural anti-nausea. It has a natural anti-nausea component in it. So things like ginger tea, ginger ale even. There's in the health food store, there are ginger candies that are really popular, ginger gum. These are all foods that can really be easy on the stomach. I was at the grocery store the other day, and I even saw a nausea relief drink that has 10 grams of ginger in it. So, there are options out there. Now, the other side effects that you were talking about, I think I saw a question about taste alterations. That's one that you have to experiment with. Sometimes the more bland the food, the better. Sometimes adding something, trying the different condiments in your refrigerator, seeing if you like ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, and then kind of incorporating that with foods. Typically cold foods are also tolerated best through treatment, especially if you are if you're having nausea. I really like smoothies because I feel like a lot of my patients enjoy the fact that there's a straw, so it bypasses those front taste buds. Also, you can adjust it. If you want something with a little zing, you can make it citrusy. If you have mouth sores and you want to avoid citrus at all costs, you can make it more cooling with a banana or melon. There's so many different varieties of smoothies out there. Another thing that I hear all the time, something that's very helpful, is a baking soda, salt, and water mouthwash. And what that does, it helps take bad taste out of the mouth, keep the mouth feeling fresh. Some people say it helps to enhance taste. And the recipe is 1 teaspoon salt to 1 teaspoon baking soda, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and 1 quart of water. And I tell my patients just to make up a water bottle, keep it by the sink, and every time you pass by, give a good old swish and spit. That really helps again, to neutralize your palate. It also helps if you have mouth sores. It helps to heal those. The best, you have to be very consistent with it. You have to do it at least 5 or 7 times a day. So really, before eating, after eating, just really try and stay on top of it with that baking soda, salt, and water mouthwash. Something else that can help, I'll just throw it out there. There's some toothpaste that can help with stimulate saliva production, help your mouth feel moist. These are all great if you have a treatment that's maybe giving you dry mouth, or again with the nausea, sometimes if you just really work on that mouth taste, it can be helpful.
Great, thank you. And then one final question for Dr. Schwartz. For many cancer survivors in active treatment, and perhaps for even those who are post-treatment, the idea of exercise might sound really overwhelming. What recommendations do you have to address this issue?
I think that's why I stressed so much starting off doing something that's very reasonable. And if walking around the dining room table is what you're able to do, then that's okay. So you need to start off with a very reasonable, attainable goal. And I've worked with many patients where we really have literally, asked them to have a family member pull chairs away from the table, and they walk around the table once and they sit down and they rest. And then they might do it again. And then they may come back later on in the day and do, 1 or 2 more laps. And gradually over time, they get stronger. And so the most important thing when you're feeling overwhelmed about, oh God, this is something else I have to do and how am I going to be able to do this, is to choose an activity you like and start off at a very low amount of time that you exercise and a very low intensity, so that the next day or the next 2 or 3 days you don't feel overwhelmingly fatigued and have muscle soreness from pushing yourself too hard. So it's really about dosing yourself out so you don't get too exhausted.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to Dr. Schwartz and to Jennifer, and I wish you all a good evening.